Well, hello there. This is Greg, and this is my fourth attempt. I'm going to get this right this time. This is me walking you through a pictorial tour of my LDS mission in the Great Ohio Columbus Mission that took place between the years 1985 and 1987. So, you don't need to know this, but I've had technical difficulties the prior three attempts. So, fourth time's a charm, and this time it's totally going to work. I can feel it. Anyways, so it is currently the year 2021, and a great deal of time, of course, has passed between when these pictures were taken and today. And the memories have faded a little bit in some cases, in lots of cases. I've done my best to preserve the pictures that matter most, along with some that don't matter at all, but I'm going to share with you anyways. So, back in the year 1985, President Spencer W. Kimball decided that I should go on a mission to Ohio. And so, of course, so many missions begin at the Missionary Training Center in Provo, Utah. And so, indeed, that is where I began. I went out there in December, I believe it was the 12th, and coming from the Bay Area, California, the snow was kind of different for me. I had lived in it a little bit in college, but on the whole, it was no big deal. Got to take pictures of odd random things. You'll notice that the first half of my mission, I took a ton more pictures than the second half of my mission. Not that these are that important, but it is kind of interesting to see my missionary scriptures when they were shiny and new. All the tabs are on and whatnot. This was my badge. The dots indicate how long I was there. I was in the MTC for 12 days, which for anyone who's gone to a foreign-speaking mission, 12 days is nothing. But for me, that seemed like an eternity. Although overall, my time was very enjoyable there. So that's me and my district. All the elders in the picture came with me to Ohio, and the two sisters went to Canada. We never saw them again. So I was there for Christmas, and that was actually really interesting. In a way, it was kind of scary because, Christmas, it's going to be different, right? And it was different. No eggnog, oh my goodness. And also none of the normal commercial things. And you know what? I liked it. I didn't like the no eggnog part, but I will say that that's left me with kind of a residual discomfort with all the commercial part of Christmas. So if you come see where I put my focus these days, it's the manger, not the tree. Anyways, there's my desk. Pretty nifty little areas that they had for us. It was, like I say, the MTC was pretty comfortable. On the left is my companion, my MTC companion, Ibsen. And then there's Elder Penrod, the goofball. He seemed to need to be in as many pictures as he could be in. So there you go. Ibsen was a little bit shy, but, with enough coaxing, he'd come out of his shell. And we studied, and we studied, and we studied. Oh my goodness, did we study. We didn't know how much we didn't know about the gospel, but we learned. At least we learned enough to get us started. It was interesting, though. One of the things that I learned, and in fact, it really was true on my mission, is that what I really needed to know most was what I was taught in seminary. And having memorized those seminary scripture mastery scriptures, that gave me the answers to the questions that came up during my mission. So this is me at the MTC, I think in the laundry area, judging by the ironing boards. And what I'm doing there is I'm making a recording, a cassette recording, to send probably to my friend Steve, who is serving his mission in the Dominican Republic. I had a few friends that it was just too much to say to try and write, and so we would talk and talk and talk on these cassette recordings and send them back and forth to each other. You wouldn't imagine that you could talk for 90 minutes, but indeed we did. So this is us goofing around, more goofing around, and this is my friend Randy. He was a friend from home, and we were in the MTC at the same time, and we bumped into each other. I think he was on his way out to Italy, if I remember correctly. So that's Randy. Anyways, so on New Year's Eve, we flew out to Ohio, And my first assigned area was the Ohio State University campus. And so my first day as a missionary was New Year's morning in Columbus, Ohio. There's my first mission president and his wife, Weymouth D. Pugh from, I think, Gilbert, Arizona. President Pugh was a wonderful man. He was the same vintage as my grandfather. Pretty stern. He was pretty strict with the rules. No music of any kind, that sort of thing. But we knew that he loved us and we loved him too. And Sister Pugh, whose first name, I guess, as far as I recall, is Sister, she was awesome. The best mission mom you could ask for. And see, look at that right there. They love me. You can tell. I am clearly their favorite missionary. It's true. There's El Presidente caught off guard. You can just kind of imagine him. What? Yep. Office elders. And now this wasn't taken right when I got there. I think actually this was probably a year later, judging by who I'm standing next to. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but here's me over on the right-hand side. So that's our whole mission. And now one of the big opportunity or cool things about being an Ohio State University campus missionary is you get the O. You get the cool O, which is the school logo, to put on your missionary tag. There's only two reasons that you would be allowed to put something on your missionary tag, and that was one of them. If you ever serve in that area, you get the O. So look at that, how cool I am. So anyways, this is Columbus, Ohio in January. And you might say to yourself, that looks kind of gray and bleak. And that's because Columbus, Ohio in January is gray and bleak. It's so gray and bleak that even our car was gray and bleak. Although it looks like a pretty, humble car, and it was. And it didn't even have a radio in it. I didn't know that was a thing before I got there. I'm like, where's the radio? But I'll tell you what, some of the poor areas that we served in, man, we were the styling ones with our cool car. It was as good as any Cadillac as far as they were concerned. So that was our bleak, gray, awesome, luxury Cadillac, not Cadillac, Ford Tempo. Tempo, not Taurus. Anyways, more bleak and gray. It was interesting, I have to admit, when I got there, because California doesn't really get bleak and gray. And so it was like, wow, it was a stretch for me to find the beauty, right? And the bottom line is, it's not a beautiful place right now. So focus on the people, right? And that's what we did. And we got to spend our time with a lot of great people in quite a few different circumstances. Fun fact about Ohio, it's flat. Not a big, surprise there. So when it's flat, the only way you're going to have water pressure is if you pump it up into a tower and then let gravity do the rest. So there you go. Now, this looks like a beautiful church, and indeed it was, but by the time I showed up there, this had been converted into the Columbus Camera Group. And so it still had all of its beauty in it, and it also had a whole boatload of old used camera equipment of every shape and size. And it's all used as like a flea market for old camera equipment. And my companion, turns out, Elder Dearden, he was my trainer, he loved photography. And in fact, he was in high school, he learned how to develop and print his own photos. And I enjoyed photography, although I didn't know any of those things. And so while we were together, we scraped up a few bucks, and it really wasn't very expensive. I think this was maybe $20 or something. And we got the equipment that we needed. This was some of it, not all of it. And we set up a little developing studio in our bathroom. Oh, the chemicals. They smelled. That was an amazing smell. Anyways, here's the camera bag, which ironically is sitting right now about 6 feet to the left of me. It does still have the same old camera gear. Literally the same camera gear is sitting in it right now. Plus the camera that you don't see, but I don't use it for that. I use it to hang over my door to keep the cats in. So, but at least it's still here. Anyways, we weren't actually literally tracting on the other side of the veil, although it is kind of interesting, with our focus these days of, gathering Israel on both sides of the veil. Well, here we are doing our bit. I don't remember honestly if this was completely staged or what we were. I guess it probably was, but it was on a P day. Hey, let's go do this. Excuse me. These two buildings, this is student housing for OSU students, and I don't know what the official names for these two buildings were. They're towers, right? Two individual towers. We called them Sodom and Gomorrah. That probably wasn't their official name, but I don't know what their actual official name was. This is the view outside of our apartments, so kind of bleak and gray. And there's flat, Ohio. So if you look one direction, there it is. And then if you point back and look, that's the entire downtown right there, or at least it was in 1985. So, I mean, it was a downtown, but if you're used to San Francisco, then it's a tiny downtown. Anyways, okay, so the next few photos are some of the ones that we took and developed and printed ourselves. So this was our front door of our apartment. We were apartment B1. And someone long before me stuck the little Mormon missionary plaque in there. Nobody ever knocked on our door, are you the Mormon missionary? It didn't ever happen while I was there. But anyways, B1, Mormon missionary. So these are just totally random photos that you can see all the splotches and everything and the colors that we weren't very good at it. Now, why do you suppose a missionary would take a picture of a mailbox? Well, obviously, because that was our lifeline to the outer world. We lived for what we sent out and then what eventually would come back. This old Book of Mormon on top here was one that I got at a used bookstore in Columbus. It was just kind of there. When I found it, it's like, holy cow. You definitely, now that I live in Utah, you don't find anything like that in used bookstores here. But anyways, old and new. And there's one of my tags. This one didn't have my sticker on it. Anyways, here's the other end of the mailbox chain. These were our mail. This was the middle one there was ours on the left, I guess. And every day we would go through the same. We'd ask ourselves the same soul-wrenching question: does anybody out there love us enough to send us a letter today? And we would open the box. No, nobody loves us enough to send us a letter today. And that was our dreary existence. Very little mail. I'm afraid to say we got very little mail. That's okay. More random pictures, just some photographic stuff. This was a print that we had on our wall. Sorry, it's a little blurry. Okay. And then one day on P Day, see, in the middle of winter in Columbus, there isn't an awful lot for a couple of missionaries to do, so we have to kind of make up activities. So we decided, well, hey, we've got all this photographic equipment. Let's take a navy blue bed sheet that we happen to have and pin it to the wall, apparently without ironing it first. And let's see if we can take some handsome pictures of ourselves. And I guess being in focus was purely optional. And so I'm pretty sure that between us, we put on every bit of P-Day clothing that we had that, might look in any way kind of handsome-y. And getting ourselves properly framed was obviously not critical. And we just took a bunch of odd random pictures. This one here, obviously I'm trying to be funny, but to me, the funny thing looking back at it all these years later, that vacuum cleaner, right? It was ancient at that time. It's obviously double ancient today. That was our actual vacuum cleaner, right? That was not a prop. Now, I'm not saying that we vacuumed our floor every other day. We might have used it once or twice in the 4 months that I was there, but that was our actual vacuum cleaner. So there's me in my Inspector Gadget jacket, looking very fancy, a little blurry, kind of doing the smolder thing. Anyways, yep. So that's us goofing around. These last few, this is proof positive that you can dress them up, but they still look dorky. I still haven't learned how to smile properly, so it's just it's what you get. So there you go. That's the end of that. Thank heavens. Now this was our traditional and perhaps even, mandated meal for missionaries to get fed by the members who lived in the Ohio area. Whenever we'd get invited over for for meals at members' homes, maybe it was an unspoken rule, but it was always spaghetti. And it was usually with fairly thin sauce. And so the Parmesan cheese was kind of the only way that you could get it to kind of thicken up. And I'm being a little bit exaggerating, but not a lot exaggerating. There were some meals where it was quite thin. Anyways, now what you're seeing here, you might think, wow, that's messy. No, it's not messy. This shows that our first priority was on spending our time out doing missionary work out with the people. We did not want to waste time on unnecessary steps like putting food away in the cupboards and getting it back out again. So we discovered and made great use of the fact that if you just leave it all on the table, it's always right there when you need it. No time wasted. Get out there, do missionary work. There you go. Also, same goes for ironing your clothes, because you never know when you might need a camera lens or some other item. And so it's best if you just leave them on the ironing board right there. You can totally iron a shirt just on the very tail end of the board. You don't need the whole length of it. We're not wearing skirts. So that was totally sufficient, and that was a time-saving, strategy there. So apparently also sitting on the floor is faster and easier than sitting in the actual couch. Or it could be that there was no room on the couch because there were too many other things piled up there. I don't remember. And see, here's an extension of that same strategy. Why waste precious time on fruitless activities like making your bed? It is time wasted. Just jump in and jump out and get busy doing your missionary work. And that is the truth. Yep. It was interesting to see when my son Hunter was showing us pictures of his apartments in the Philippines. Their investigator, boards didn't look exactly like ours, but for the most part, they were actually kind of similar. Kind of funny. Anyways, so here's me. It's interesting. It didn't actually snow all that much while I was there. It just snowed some, and then it stayed, and it really never left, and it became gray, nasty, icy, cold. Anyways, so, I wanted to send a message to my friend Steve, and so let's send a big message. So, hi, Steve. And, he's in the Dominican Republic where it's tropical and nice. And so, of course, you gotta make a snowball and toss a snowball. So there you go. Now, this was the best day, April 21st, 1986. And we had a baptism. So there was... Lisa Moore was part of a group of OSU students who we got to teach, and yay, she was of the group. She was the one that chose at that time to be baptized. I have not the foggiest clue if any of them later decided to jump into the water, but because there were a couple of them that we did spend more time with. And then there was maybe 10 of them all together that sat in for a couple of lessons. But she was the one who went through with it, and that was really great. So Lisa is the one on the left, and I must confess I do not remember the name of the young lady on. Sorry, Lisa's on the right, and I do not recall the name of the one on the left. So sorry about that. She definitely has a name. I remember clearly that she has a name. I just don't remember what it is. So there's my companion, Elder Dearden, with Lisa. Anyways, now a neat thing happened. So there was another family that we were teaching, the Messiers, Michael and Nancy. And I wasn't there when they were originally found, and I wasn't there when they were finally baptized. Well, I guess I was, but we were, I had since been transferred out. And so we were just kind of one of the missionaries in the process of teaching them that got to spend time with them, and it was neat to have been a part of that. And because I hadn't been transferred too far away, I was able to actually come back for their baptismal service. So there's Michael and Nancy. They actually do smile, as you can see. And then later, I was actually at I believe it was a state conference, but at that meeting they administered the sacrament. And by that time, Michael had been ordained a priest in the Aaronic priesthood, and he passed me the sacrament. And that was the coolest thing, to be able to receive the sacrament from somebody that we helped teach. So, one of the themes of my mission, that looking back on it all these years later, was that what we really were doing there was planting seeds, nurturing seeds that other people had planted. And then in just one or two occurrences, we got to harvest, some seeds. And that was neat to be able to do that. But the bottom line being, we don't always get to harvest the seeds that we plant, right? And our successes so often are because of the hard work of other people who came before us. And we can't judge our success only by, the part that seems more obvious. We have to just have faith in the fact that we're part of a process, and that if we're there doing the right things, doing the best that we can, then even if it doesn't feel like we're moving the needle, we're hopefully leaving behind good impressions with people. So anyways, this is Nancy in their home. They would always feed us. We'd come over, they'd feed us. It was kind of like the standard routine. And it was always this salad. And it was like a spinach salad, and it had some sort of like a honey balsamic something or other. There was sweetness in the dressing, or raspberry. So I don't even remember. I had never had salad dressing that was sweet, and there were also raisins in the salad. And I thought, what is this I'm tasting? This is strange, but I'm gonna like it. And so that was neat. And it was a great family. They had their little daughter, Natasha, who's, I'm sure, very grown up right now. Anyways, after 4 months, it was time to move on. So I was transferred to my second companion, Bell Fountain, Ohio. Oh yeah, by the way, that is pronounced Bell Fountain. Bell Fountain. So don't waste your time saying, wait, you're saying that wrong. Well, if I was in France, I might be saying it wrong, but in Ohio, I'm saying it right. Bell Fountain. So this is Elder Sturgeon. And Elder Sturgeon, he was a good man, and he was a different sort of missionary. And so here I was. This was my first lesson in what would become a multiple part lesson it's actually served me my whole life, which is the realization that in the church and in church service, whether you're talking about full-time missionary service or just regular, callings and duties that we perform as regular members, you will work with people of all different sorts and all different personalities and all different work ethics and all different attitudes. And you can't get too frustrated when people are different than what you are in any of those areas. You have to just love them and work with them as best you can in whatever way works best, between the two of you. You kind of find that balance between you. So good old Elder Sturgeon, he was, he did not like going and tracting or finding people to teach. Like that was just, it was, he wouldn't do it, basically. Now, Bell Fountain was a little branch area, and as it turns out, we had quite a few members who were no longer attending church. And so part of our assignment was to work with them and to try and encourage them to come back to church and just kind of keep them from drifting too far away. And so that was actually where we spent more of our time. And so it wasn't completely unproductive. And also we just sort of circulated with the people who lived near us and things like that. So, I hope that I'm not incorrect in saying that we did have a positive effect on the good people of Bell Fountain, but it would also be extremely incorrect to say that what we did there is what ordinary missionaries would ordinarily do, which is be out there knocking on doors. And to be clear, it's not how I spent the rest of my mission, which was absolutely out there. If I don't have someone to teach, then I'm going to go find someone to teach. And that's not what I was able to do in this case. And it was interesting because going into it, I had definite attitudes about good missionaries and bad missionaries. And I really had to reevaluate that and realize that's kind of an immature way to look at it. It's not that black and white, which is not to say it's a gray area as far as, sin and not sin. We should have been out working harder, but in my case, and especially where I'm the junior companion, the extremely junior companion, there wasn't a lot I could do about it. Anyways, this is our bathroom. You can't exactly see, but I will tell you that there's no shower here. There's only the bathtub. And it was hot when we were there. At least it became hot. And it was a 2-story place, and this was upstairs. And man, we would just get so hot and sweaty. And we had no car and no bikes. So anywhere we went, we had to walk. And, I learned to appreciate showers when I didn't have one. Now, mind you, my son who went to the Philippines would say, yeah, shut up. This was so much nicer than anything he had. And that would be completely true. Anyways, it was actually a really neat little townhouse that we were in, humongous for just the two of us. But it was a small town. They didn't have regular apartments there. So that's my bed with all my stuff. This was our whole house air conditioning system right there, probably built in the late 1890s. But it worked. You gotta give it to it. It worked. Turned on and whoosh. And that's the only way you could do it. It was so hot in there. You just have to open a window and pray that the air outside at some point is going to become a little bit cooler than the air inside. So this is the downstairs. It actually got so hot upstairs where it was up over 100 degrees and at night. And so what we did is we drug our mattresses downstairs and lined them up inside, the doorway, the main doorway, and we put that very fan in the doorway. There was a screen door to keep the bugs out, most of the bugs. And we just, again, we were figuring, well, it's not 100 degrees outside at midnight, so hopefully we can blow some of that air in on us. Anyways, good times. There's me in my completely awesome 80s OP beach shorts and my super cool Bell Fountain, Ohio. So Bell Fountain, remember that. Don't forget, Bell Fountain t-shirt. This is looking out across the street from our place. And it's neat because looking out that way, that's every night during, as the weather warmed up, that's where we would see the heat lightning. That's something that it just happens in that area every night. And when it's really that hot, you get this high altitude, it clouds over, and you get all these lightning events, but it's so high up there and it never strikes the ground. You never hear thunder, but it just kind of lights up the sky. It's neat. And the other very cool thing is that you get fireflies all coming through there. And so even though it looks like just, kind of this weird little empty grassy field, whatever, I learned to appreciate and enjoy some really neat evenings out there with our neighbors and just experiencing a different kind of life. So it was neat. Anyways, out in the back of our townhomes was the railroad tracks. And so we were on the edge of town, and to get anywhere in town, which was everywhere we ever needed to be, we first had to cross the railroad tracks. We never hopped up on a moving train. There was one time that we were very tempted, and we thought, nope, just our luck. We'll chop our legs off like in that one movie, and that would be bad. Our moms would not forgive us. This is part of our district at one of our weekly district meetings. Now, one day, one of those one of those inactive member families that we would spend time with decided to take us out to the nearby reservoir for a little bit of R&R. And their plan was that, and they brought some fishing poles because they enjoyed fishing. And so they got a couple of poles for us. They're cool that way. They were thinking of us. Now, these poles were little, maybe 3-foot long plastic Barbie fishing poles. And I'm not kidding. It literally said Barbie on it. So maybe it was a joke. I'm not sure. They had one for each of us. I'm not much of a fisherman, but I know how to run a fishing pole, but it was one of those old closed Zebco reels, and mine tangled immediately. And I didn't care that much. It's like, okay, these are stupid. I hate these things. I'm done. So I put my pole away and just kind of enjoyed being around the lake. But my companion, Elder Sturgeon, did not do that. He kept fishing with his, and his did not tangle, and so he kept right on fishing. He didn't catch anything, but he kept right on fishing right up until the fishing game people arrived and wanted to see everybody's fishing licenses. I wasn't fishing. I wasn't anywhere near a fishing pole, so I was fine. And our member family had fishing licenses, but my companion did not. And I don't know why, but they put him in their police car, and they drove him into town so that he could pay his fine that he owed. And meanwhile, I'm in the member's car, following right behind him, just kind of freaking out. That's my companion. You can't take him. I have to stay with him. Anyways, that was kind of a funny day. So our member friends paid the fine for us. That was very, very appreciated, but it was kind of a crazy day. Anyways, this is just an interesting sign. In Ohio, they have decent sized populations of Amish and Mennonite people. I never actually interacted with or met an Amish person, although we would see them. And I did meet one Mennonite couple, although they lived in just a normal home. They dressed plainly and all that, but not conspicuously. So I don't know that you would know that they were Mennonite to look at them. Anyways, it's interesting because my church congregation now is the Oak Grove Ward in Sandy, Utah. And here is the Oak Grove Mennonite Church in Bellefontaine, Ohio. So you're probably wondering who this is, and I will tell you, that's me. And I do not remember in any way why I'm wearing those glasses. That's just weird. This was not in our backyard, but if you figure that the entire town of Bellefontaine was in our backyard, this was in our backyard. It was near the railroad tracks. So, of course, when you see a tall tower like that, you have no choice, right? You must climb it, and so, of course, we did. So this is the lovely town of Bellefontaine. It was beautifuler and greener than this. I'm afraid that the photo has faded over time. And but anyways, that's a cute little Bellefontaine from way up high. And there's cute little elder sturgeon from way up high. Now, elder sturgeon was a collector. He was an acquirer of things. And so I honestly don't remember. I know that he was maybe he was in the last maybe quarter of his mission. I don't remember exactly how few months he had left to go before he went home. But he was near enough, and so I guess he felt that he needed to start to, bulk up his manly muscles so that he'd look beautiful for the ladies. I never saw him actually bench press all this much weight, but he got that from one of our neighbors. He got another thing from our neighbors. One day, he says to me, "Hey, we need to go next door, and I need your help." With what? Well, our neighbors are giving us a desk, and so I need your help carrying it into our apartment. And I was like, "Well, cool, but you already have a desk. We each have a desk. We have 2 desks, and there's 2 of us. Why do we need a desk?" And he's like, "Just stop asking questions and come help me." Oh, okay. Sorry, that's not a desk. That's a neighbor child. He did not acquire her, but the kids were cute. We enjoyed being with the kids. Oh, and that's our little row of townhomes. They kind of interrupted my story here, though, didn't they? So this is, we're almost there. Why am I holding a Bill Cosby record? I don't remember exactly, but here's the desk. There's the desk. Okay. And those of you who are older than I'm not sure what age are looking at that saying, "Wait a second now. I happen to know that's not a desk." And you would be correct. And so when I saw it, I'm like, "Dude, are you kidding me? That is not a desk." He's like, "Just shut up and help me." So another one of those learnings about dealing with people. To his very genuine credit, Elder Sturgeon was careful not to abuse any of the big rules of the mission. But one of the other rules, if we dare to rank them, one of the other rules that he didn't feel so strongly about was listening to music. And so this desk, if you open up the lid of the desk and turn the dials right, then amazing radio station music will come out of it. And it picked up every station that there was, so because it was an old tube set. Anyways, and unfortunately for me, Elder Sturgeon's taste in music was very similar to my own. And so it was very hard for me to not enjoy listening to the music that he would blast through our apartment when he felt inclined. Anyways, that's me out on the street. I don't know what happened to those shoes. I love those shoes. This is me trying to be fancy with a little nighttime photography. So that was the end of that. We were there 3 months, I think, Elder Sturgeon and I, and then they split us up, and I went to my next area, Centerville. Now, Centerville was interesting. It was much more like my home. The homes were newer. It was just normal incorporated city streets. Bell Fountain, it was a lot of, kind of the unincorporated, no curbs, on at least in a lot of it, and very, kind of more backwoodsy, whereas Centerville was just very much like a normal Bay Area kind of a town. The homes were similar. It was sort of upscale. The residents there were more, they were on average on a higher kind of income level and things like that. So in one way, it seemed more comfortable to me and more normal, more like what I was used to from home. But I discovered something else, which is that when people are that comfortable, they really aren't interested in hearing about the gospel. They feel like their lives are under control. They're good to go. And so we worked very hard here. We covered just every neighborhood in our bicycles, knocking on every door and all that. And boy, we really kind of got nowhere. And so that was hard. Anyways, our apartment was up above the Dick Stewart Nationwide Insurance Company. So that was our home. You'll get some pictures of it in a minute. This was my first companion there. He was also from the Bay Area, and so it was interesting. We came from the same background, had a lot in common. This is Marion Proudfoot, and her dog. Her dog also has a name. That's one of the things that you'll discover here is everybody in these pictures has a name, but I don't necessarily remember what those names are. Anyways, awesome dog. I love this dog. Coolest dog on the planet. He was a Samoyed. Never heard of that prior, but so soft and fluffy and white. Anyways, very cool dog. He wasn't interested in the gospel either. That was a disappointment. So this was my first area where I actually needed a bike. So I bought a used bike from a missionary who I'm sure bought it from a missionary who I'm sure bought it from a missionary. And in case you're curious, the seat of that bicycle is constructed out of concrete or maybe steel. I'm not exactly sure. It was some impregnable, inflexible substance. And it took a couple weeks for my butt to reshape itself into the shape of the seat. Those were an unhappy couple of weeks. But once that was completed, we rode like the wind, and it was pretty cool. These pictures here are taken on an expressway that was being built and not in use yet. So we got to be fancy driving down the middle of the expressway without getting run over. This is the wife of our ward mission leader, Sister Fund. She was just the most wonderful lady. Her whole family, they were such great supports for us. She must have fed us 3 times a week, which is good. We avoided starvation in that way until the dreaded day when the mission office made a new rule, which was that missionaries could only eat with the same family once a month. Oh my goodness, once a month. Well, so we were so grateful to her for all the meals and all the kindness that we decided one P-Day that we were going to fix her car for her. Her car was very white and oxidized, the paint job in her old station wagon. So we got rubbing compound and a lot of elbow grease, and we made it go away. We made it nice and purty and red again. Now my companion and I, we also enjoyed making other things nice. These aren't in perfect order, actually, but this is our apartment while we're painting it. It was kind of bleak and dreary. It looked sort of, if you can imagine, like a fish tank that never gets cleaned, and so it's sort of orange and murky inside. That was how our apartment looked, plus infinity of little holes from years of missionaries tacking things up to the walls. There is actually a before picture, so it was kind of dingy, and so we made it nice and beautiful and white. Now, one of the things that we realized afterwards is now that it's nice and beautiful and white, the walls, that is, now we can more clearly see how horrible and dingy and dirty and gross everything else is, all the furniture and the carpet. We couldn't really fix that. But, hey, the walls looked great, didn't they? So there you go. We were there during, into the winter, from the fall to the winter. And as beautiful as the fall was, it got cold. And at one point, our heat wasn't working right. And it was literally colder in the apartment than it was inside our refrigerator. So that was kind of awkward. We could see our breath inside there, but not for long. Anyways, beautiful Ohio. It is certainly something as you're approaching, the end of summer into fall, where the temperature is tolerable and everything's still beautiful. Now, while I was there, I was given a new companion, Elder Knowles, and he was a brand new missionary, so I got to train him. And it was interesting because I realized something during this assignment. When I was the greenie with Elder Dearden, we were together 4 months, and by the 4th month, I had become rather impatient with him. He was not doing things quite how I'd want to do them, or as fast as I'd want to do them, or whatever. And I figured that I knew better. And I never realized until I was now with Elder Knowles, and 3 months after he and I were together, he became impatient with me. I discovered something, which is that Elder Dearden wasn't so flawed after all, or at any rate, maybe he was flawed, but it was okay that he was flawed, because I realized I was flawed too. And as trainers, we do our best, but we don't know everything, and we're just doing our best. Anyways, it was kind of fun. We enjoyed our time together, but when it was time to go, we were ready to be done. So that's our district. And so my next assignment was Connorsville, Indiana. It was actually very, very cool. I loved Connorsville, Indiana. It was, you may know, Indiana only does, they don't do daylight savings. And so half of the year they were on the same time zone as Ohio, and the other half of the year they were an hour off. And that only bit us a couple of different times, but it did bite us a couple of times. Anyways, hey, guess what? The other reason why a missionary in the Ohio Columbus Mission gets to put a sticker on his tag is if he serves, or she serves, in Indiana. How cool am I? I've now done both of the two things. So there you go. There's my new and improved badge. Now, this was a very spread out area, and so we did have a car, although our trusty steed only had a 1,000-mile limit. That was the rule, not the mechanical limit. Still no radio, so that was still kind of disappointing, but that's okay. And guess what? Sometimes we ran out of miles, and you parked it. Boy, you better not drive a single inch further than those 1,000 miles that you're allowed. Otherwise, you're in trouble. And so, sometimes we would park it, and we'd be back on our bikes. And that was always disappointing, to have a car and not be able to use the car. This is Elder Smith. He was my first Indiana companion. I loved Elder Smith. He was quiet and funny, and he taught me lots of things. This was our apartment. It was upstairs, and it was a really neat little apartment. This is a really horrible picture of a really neat little apartment. This is our lovely kitchen. Now, you'll notice that the color of the kitchen is white in the walls and every other way. And these eggs are not white. These are blackened eggs. And this was another interesting thing that I learned. So what you do not want to do is take a carton of eggs, especially a foam carton of eggs, and set it down on the stove on the back burner, because although you may tell yourself, it's okay, I'm just using the front burner, the problem is you can't control mistakes in turning on the back burner erroneously instead of the front burner. And what I discovered is that it only takes a heartbeat for that foam container to catch fire, and only about 2 more heartbeats for it to completely go from being a carton to what you see there. And what happens then is 1 million little black cinders go floating through the air, which isn't going to kill anything. They're not still on fire, but what happens is they attach themselves wherever they touch, on any painted surface, and it just embeds itself in the paint, and it never comes off. Like, there's nothing you can do without just scraping the paint off to get those little black spots off the paint. So I don't have a picture of the black spotted white kitchen, but our cute little white kitchen became like a Dalmatian spotted. They're tiny little spots, but still. Oopsie. So there's the stairs to get in and out of our apartment. Now, our district was spread across different towns. We were the only missionaries in our town, but it was quite a few miles between us and the other missionaries. And so for our weekly district meetings, we did not have Zoom back then, or the internet at all. And so we would drive to a central town and have our meetings together there. But there was no church building, not one of our church buildings, in that town. And so somebody long before I got there had arranged with the owners of the Howard's funeral home for us to meet there in one of their chapels. And so that was nice, and it worked great, no problem at all. But I don't think they were members, and so we had to pay in a way through service for the use of their facilities. And so when our meeting was over every week, we would bust out the vacuum cleaners. They had several, and we would vacuum all the floors, in the various different, because they had several chapels there, and all the lobby areas and every other place. It would take us, maybe 30 minutes of vacuuming to get it all done. And about half the time, there'd actually be dead people in caskets parked up there at the front of the chapels, awaiting their big day. And a couple of times the lids were open. That kind of freaked me out a little bit, but I always felt a little awkward because, here I am making a big ruckus with a vacuum cleaner right around someone who's supposed to be resting in peace. So it was interesting. Won't forget that one. So I was only with Elder Smith for a month, and then I got to be with Elder Taylor. Now, Elder Taylor was a different sort of missionary. I was his second companion, and so, as you probably know, when you're that new on your mission, you still know everything. And Elder Taylor definitely knew everything, and he was only too happy to tell me the things that I was doing wrong. And he and I disagreed on a few points, and I was over my halfway point now, so. I knew that I didn't know everything at that point, but there were a couple things that I felt like I had figured out. And so it got a little bit contentious, or maybe a lot contentious, between Elder Taylor and I. But part of my challenge is that he would get kind of verbally abusive about it, and I basically wanted to kill him. And so after about 3 weeks, I sent in my weekly report back to mission headquarters, I basically told them, well, you decide. Either you transfer him out or transfer me out, or I'm going to put myself on a bus and come back to Columbus on the next transfer day, and then you can do what you want with me. But I'm not going to stay with this guy past another week. And mercifully, they did indeed transfer him out. So yay, thank you. In retrospect, he was doing what he thought was the right thing, and so I can't criticize him for that, or at least I have to recognize his courage in standing up for what he thought was right. But he was wrong. Anyways, so this is my next companion, Elder Tyler Pettit, from Sandy, Utah. And ironically, I have now moved, and for the past 15 plus years, I live about 2 short blocks away from where he grew up. So Elder Pettit was a mighty fisherman. And so on some of our P days, we would go either there was a river in town that we fished at once, and then we went to a pay lake and another lake. I think maybe it was 3 different times, 3 different P days while we were together that we went fishing. And it was fun to watch him. I told you before, I was not a great fisherman, but he loved to fly fish. And so here he was at a pay lake, which is not where you would ever bring a fly fish. And the people that ran the place were looking at him like, what are you doing? I didn't catch anything, but he did. He caught a carp. I had heard of a carp. I didn't know anything about a carp. It was a disgusting looking fish, and it was huge. It took him a long time to get it. But anyways, so Elder Pettit taught me the recipe for cooking a carp. I will share that with you now. The procedure is you take the carp and you nail it to a board, and then you put the board and the carp in the fire, right? In your campfire. This is a camp recipe. And you cook it and cook it and cook it and cook it and cook it. And then you take the fish off of the board and you eat the board. There, that's it. That's the carp recipe. While we were there was a part member family, and one of their sons decided he wanted to take the lessons and join the church. And he was over 9, and so that meant that it was a missionary thing. So we got to teach him, and there he is getting baptized. So that was neat to get to do that. This cute little lady she ironed Pettit's shirts. As you can see from your careful examination of his shirts, they are very crisply ironed, and I didn't care at all about whether I had, crisp pleats in my shirts or creases or anything like that. So he paid her to iron his shirts. And alrighty, fine. But she was just a neat little old lady. So it was fun to get to know her. This was another couple that not members, and we would visit them, maybe once a week. And it was funny. They were retired, and the two of them would sit there in their recliner chairs and watch the Home Shopping Club, Home Shopping Network. Anyways, it was a cable channel. I didn't grow up with cable. They had cable, but the Home Shopping Network was one of the channels, and they watched that all day. And it would just have kind of interesting, useless things. And so their house was filled with interesting, useless things. Anyways, watching them, they were the nicest people. And I thought to myself, wow, if this is what retirement is all about, I don't want it. I'll work till I die, because this looks horribly boring. Anyways, this is part of the Snyder family, and they were wonderful. We were probably with them about once a week. One evening we were over there, and the dad is not in the picture here, as you can see. But one evening he comes out into the room that we were all in together, and he has this little white bag in his hand, and he asks me, "You want some pork rinds?" And I'm thinking those things that you get in the bag at the gas station, right? And I'm like, "Sweet, yeah, pork rinds, thank you very much." And so he extends this bag, and so I reach in to grab some pork rinds, but what's in that bag is not what I would call pork rinds. It's like softly, lightly boiled pig fat, clinging to a little bit of chewy, I don't know what. But so it's like shredded pig fat stuff. Disgusting. Disgusting is basically what it is. And, but like, you're a missionary, you don't say no. And especially if you've already said yes, then you especially don't say no. And besides, I didn't really know. Well, he seems to like it, so maybe it'll be okay. Totally wasn't okay. It was disgusting. And it wouldn't go away. I'm chewing and I'm chewing and I'm chewing. And it's like, is this stuff ever going to leave? Nope. I still get the heebie-jeebies thinking about it. Nasty. Anyways, that's the Snyders. I will never forget them. That might be the Snyder's Kitchen. I don't recall exactly. Let's go with that. That's the Snyder's Kitchen. And it was interesting. I had really never, I'm sure that there are blossoming trees in the Bay Area, but I never noticed. And the winters were never creepy enough that spring was such a big deal. But in Ohio and Indiana, spring was a big deal. And so that was beautiful. And there you go, blossoms. This was Elder Marsden, my zone leader, I think. He was a really neat guy, a lot of fun. He could play the piano like, I don't know, like Billy Joel, and yet he couldn't read music, and that was just a crazy thing to me. That here's a guy who can play the piano like that, but not even read a bit of music. Anyway, so then it was time for me to go to Circleville, my last normal area, and Circleville was super different. So I had two companions, one companion, then another companion, while I was at Circleville, and both of those two companions were what I probably unfairly call babysitting assignments. And what I mean by that is, in both cases, my companions there were about to go home and were just done. And the area was, it was a little town, but it was a huge area. The ward, it took us an hour to drive to church. We didn't have a car. I had my bike, but in both cases, my companions did not have bikes, so couldn't use my bike. And so we just walked, and there was only one other member in town, and that's him right there, Roger, he was an awesome dude. He was a Green Beret in the Army. And that's all I remember. But he was a lot of fun. He'd tell us a lot of stories. Anyways, it was an interesting time, and it was the last quarter of my mission, right? And the last, I guess, 6 month stretch, and it was, I have to say, it was hard, just trying to find momentum, because you can't really drag a companion anywhere and expect to be able to teach a lesson. Now, one day I think this was for General Conference, our bishop brought us to his house because he lived quite close to the church building, which, like I had said earlier, is an hour away. And so we spent the night at their house, and just what a cool family, right? They had a nice big house and cool family and cool everything, and we cooked donuts in the morning. And so the whole thing was just like, wow, that's cool. This is our cat. He adopted us, and I don't know where he came from. And when we left, I don't know. He didn't stay inside with us. We just let him in sometimes. But we named him P-Day, so that's our cool kitty P-Day. This was my second companion, Elder Craythorne, and apparently Elder Craythorne had wanted to go home since about halfway through his mission, but I guess this is a kind of rumor, but I believe that it sounds true. True enough. We'll say that it is. Apparently, if you leave early from your mission, your family has to pay for your plane ticket home, and his family wouldn't pay for his plane ticket home, and so he was still there. And so I was his final companion, and just biding out the last of his time. And he's a good man. The one before him, good man. I mean, none of these guys were bad, in terms of, wow, like, you're evil. They were doing the best they could, given the limits that they had. And I don't know, it was hard. And looking back on it, it's like, I don't know, could I have gotten them to do more? And I don't know. I don't know. It's just one of those things. Like, I felt like I was doing the best I could, but the end result wasn't much, and so that was hard. And then finally, woohoo! I was put back with Elder Ibsen, my beloved MTC companion, and we had of course kept in touch with each other throughout our missions. We'd see each other at zone conferences and other things, and so it was amazing to be able to be back with him, and we knew that we were going to finish up our missions together. So Elder Ibsen is with Elder Pettit there, and Elder Ibsen had trained Elder Pettit, so that's kind of their connection. Anyway, so now I'm back with Ibsen, which, we loved it. We thought that was the coolest thing. I kind of doubt that the Lord will ever choose to have me be a mission president. But in case he ever does, I made a note to myself towards the end of my mission, which is that unless there's a burning bush to tell me otherwise, I will not put MTC companions together for the last few months of their mission, because that's not a great way, all things considered, to ensure a strong focus on the work. Which is not to say that we didn't work. We did work, but it was harder because we were both going home at exactly the same time, because we had come out at exactly the same time, and we were great friends by that point. And so, anyways, so what you're looking at here, this is a scripture reading chart. Now, it might look to you like this is a chart showing how many days before we go home, but that would be a mistake. If you look closely, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but here's the names of the books in the Book of Mormon, right? Nephi, Jacob, Mosiah. See those? See? Alma. And so this is clearly a scripture reading chart. And this shows, if we keep on schedule, how close we are to being done reading the Book of Mormon. And our goal, a very worthy goal, I might say, was we wanted to read the entire Book of Mormon together as a companionship in time for the end of our missions. That's what that is. And, of course, there's our Super Kitty P-Day. And he's there supporting us in our scripture reading goals. Now, an interesting thing happened. The mission office called us pretty early on and said, hey, we're having kind of a logistical issue. We've got a whole bunch of missionaries coming out in October, but then we've got a bunch of missionaries leaving in December. So for like a month and a half, we're going to have too many missionaries. Would you guys be willing to go home in October instead of in December, which is your normal schedule? And we're like, sure. Yeah, no, that's fine. If that'll help, we can do that. And so, see, that totally messed up our scripture reading schedule. That's a disappointment. Anyways, October now is our new going home time. So there you go. It is interesting in retrospect. Most of what Ibsen and I did when we were together, our teaching was more about, it was more informal lessons. I think if I had it to do over again, when I say informal, we met a lot of people and we taught a lot of lessons, but it was more conversationally. Now, on one hand, if we were regular humans back home after our missions, I think that's actually perfect, right? That's how it works. But if I had it to do over again, I think I would be working harder. I would have been more conscientious about saying, hey, that's an awful good question. Let's start with a prayer. I mean, I'm being a little facetious maybe, but I think we could have done a little bit more to kind of set up those, like, hey, let's get back together again and let's have a structured conversation about this. Anyways, so we stayed busy. We shared the gospel with an awful lot of people. I think due to kind of the the relaxed way that we did it, we really didn't have much success, but I do feel like we left a lot of good impressions on a lot of good people. So anyways, that was me and Ibsen together for the end of our mission, and then it was time to hit the bricks. I got a really neat opportunity. My dad was on a business trip in Chicago, which is right next door. And so I was able to, I asked him, hey, well, would it be okay if I went home by way of Chicago and my dad will be my missionary companion? And they said, yeah, sure, that's fine. And so on Halloween night, I flew from Columbus to Chicago, and I met my last missionary companion, my dad. And he was teaching his class for a couple more days, and then we would go home together. So one of those, what we would do is he would teach, and I'd stay at the hotel, and then we would go out and do a little touristy stuff. And so we went to Nauvoo and Carthage. And so these are pictures of the sunstones from the Nauvoo temple, which had been torn down. And that was really neat. They had a model of the Nauvoo temple, but not the real thing. Of course, it's been rebuilt now. But anyways, that was a really neat way to end my mission there with my last missionary companion, my dad. And then we flew back to Redwood City, California. Now, there's a really fun postscript to this. If I rewind, growing up, I had always hoped that my mission would be where my dad went, which was also where my grandfather went, which was Switzerland. They both went to the same mission. And so I just kind of figured, well, it's obviously the family mission. So even in school, I learned German, figuring, well, since I'm going there, obviously it's the family mission. I better learn the language. And so I did. And then I went to Ohio. And so, I was like, whoa, okay, that's not what I was expecting. But okay, Ohio, let's do Ohio. Well, now fast forward a whole mess of years. My son is now on his mission in the Philippines, and his amazing, wonderful girlfriend, who we all were hoping and praying would become his wife someday, and she did. We were now at her house, and she was opening her mission call. Guess where she got to go? The Ohio Columbus mission. How cool is that? And I'll tell you what, in retrospect, I wouldn't trade that. As much as I would have loved to be able to go to Switzerland on my mission, I wouldn't trade the cool factor of sharing that same mission with Miki to change missions, because that has been a really neat thing between us. And I don't know, it's cool. And now her mission experience was just amazing, and really quite different from mine. And I'm just so impressed with how hers worked out. And it's neat to see. The people of Ohio were ready for her, and so it was perfect. Anyways, so that is the end of my photo story of my LDS mission in the Great Ohio Columbus Mission, and 1 hour and 4 minutes and 22 seconds. Good job, Mom is probably the only one, or maybe Miki, the only two people who will actually watch this thing, especially all the way to the end. But thank you very much, and I'm out here.